ISKCON of Silicon Valley. I will share the screen, then we can go from there. Let me get this slideshow going. Okay, so today is a Wednesday night's lecture. Usually our selections will be either from the Bhagavad Gita or for the past few months, I've been doing Prabhupada's little gems or smaller books. Today, I will be sticking to the Bhagavad Gita. So let's get started. It's wonderful that you all decided to join us here. It's been a long week, I know. We just had Janmashtami, we had Prabhupada Appearance Day. And despite it all, the fact that you're joining is amazing and wonderful. Thank you so much. I first want to express my gratitude because there's nothing in life without gratitude and humility. When I start off, I always remember my Shiksha Guru, the one who gave me an understanding of the Bhagavad Gita and brought me to this great opportunity. And that is His Grace Shivas Pandit Prabhu, who has given me this knowledge for almost a decade now. And without his guidance and support, I would not be here today. It is all his, truly it is his strength. If there are any weaknesses in my presentation, if I humbly lack anything, then it is certainly my own fault, my own shortfall. My deepest gratitude to my Guru Maharaj, my Dasi, who is my raison d'etre, my reason for being. He is the strength, the wind beneath my wings, and my purpose of doing all this is to hopefully serve him in some small way. My eternal gratitude to our founding Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, without whom none of us would be here today. The energy, effort, sweat, blood that he put in has grown so many Bhakti Lata Bijas. And so many of us, generation after generation, return to read the nectar that is his writings. And of all of them, the three most important and prominent ones are the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which he has given to us. This mercy, this blessing, for this I'm eternally grateful. When we do any auspicious work, we start by seeking such blessings, by creating auspiciousness for ourselves, and also by taking permission to share this knowledge, because we come in a line of succession in Parampara. So one way to do that is to do prayers. They are short verses that have been written by the Acharyas before us that represent the heart of every devotee who seeks to understand spiritual knowledge. And these are called Mangalacharan prayers. They're a set of prayers that we recite. And after we recite these prayers, we will go on to sing Jai Radha Madhav, which is the kirtan, the little song that we do before we start our lectures. So let's start with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurathase Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Surato Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Matsarvasya Padambojo Radha Madana Mohanao. Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadhrumada Srimad Ratnangada Simhasanastav Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Krishyalipi Sevyamanav Smarami Shriman Rasarasaramvi Vamsivata Tatasthita Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinata Shriyes Punaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this is the Jai Radha Madhav, which is a short song from the Gita-vali. We usually sing this to kartals, but because of all the technical issues with kartals, it tends to be very high pitch and the recording goes off for a while. So we decided not to do that. I will sing it just without the kartals. Please forgive me. Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Gopijana Vallabha Jayo Girivara Dhari Jayo Girivara Dhari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari. I noticed when I was taking these, recording these slides to share, that there was a note at the bottom of it, and I wanted to share it with you. Even I had a question why it was always Jai Radha Madhav and not something else when we do our lectures at ISKCON. And the note said, Srila Prabhupada is very fond of this song, and he sang it just before his lectures. Srila Prabhupada said that this song is a complete picture, a picture of Vrindavan. Everything is there. Srimati Radharani, Vrindavan Dham, Govardhan, Yashoda, and all the cowherd boys. So that is the reason we have Jai Radha Madhav. It is a song that Srila Prabhupada liked very, very much, and we maintain that as we do our lectures. So today, I thought let me cover the Bhagavad Gita. It is a challenging undertaking, not because the Bhagavad Gita is in itself challenging, but because it has been covered by so many stalwarts before me. And by choosing to cover the Bhagavad Gita, I'm also choosing to take the risk of not doing a very satisfactory job. I'm always afraid I will fall short of the requirements for this wonderful, illustrious book. But with all humility, I shall present it to you. And hopefully, if I can induce even one of you to open the pages of that amazing book and try to read it for yourself, then I will consider this service well done, well done. So before we start, I would like to introduce the Bhagavad Gita to those who are coming here for the first time and who are new to this book. The Bhagavad Gita is also called the Song of God, or Bhagavat, which is the Lord, and Gita means song. So it's actually a collection of verses that cover a set of instructions. Actually, it's a conversation between two people in which one is asking and the other is responding with instructions and information. And the person who's asking, his name is Arjuna. And the person who's giving him the information, his name is Krishna. So Krishna Arjuna Samvade, the discussion between Krishna and Arjuna. Now, who are Krishna and Arjuna? Well, by relation, they are cousins. Arjuna is the son of Kunti, and Krishna is the son of Vasudeva, and Kunti and Vasudeva, brother and sister. So they're first cousins. So it's a very close bond. They're very friendly and close to each other. And they've spent a lot of time together, sharing, discussing. But this discussion is very unique and very special. It happens at a very critical, crucial moment in Arjuna's life. And these instructions that were received by him at the cusp of a very great battle in the land of Kurukshetra that happened around 5,000 years ago were given by Krishna to Arjuna, not just for him, but for the benefit of humanity as a whole. Because these instructions are meant for everybody who seeks the right guidance. And through these instructions, not only will we be able to enrich and refocus, recenter our lives on the right things, on the right processes, but also bring for ourselves a little bit of solace and peace and hope. And in the end, eventually, everlasting joy. For that is the process which the Bhagavad Gita talks to us about. So let's see what we're covering. So I did an introduction to the Bhagavad Gita a few months ago. We did about 2 classes on that. And in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, we covered, it's a beautiful introduction. If you have not read it yet, then I would recommend go straight to that and read it, because it's Prabhupada, introducing the Bhagavad Gita to us all. He does a similar version of chapter 2, which is chapter 2 says summary to the Bhagavad Gita, right? This is Prabhupada's summary of the Bhagavad Gita. And it's beautiful because he covers all the main points. He covers so much in it. Vaisheshika Maharaj recommends it so much. When he covered the introduction, he said it must be read because it's really such an eye-opener into the Bhagavad Gita as a whole. And today I was thinking we would cover the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is also called the Gita Upanishad. Upanishad, as the word says, means sitting near devotedly. That is what the meaning of the word Upanishad is, to come close and listen, basically. And that's what Shishyas, disciples, used to do when the Guru preached. They would come close and listen. And in a way, we, as we follow the parampara, the disciplic succession, we are now the seekers. We are the listeners. And these Upanishads are giving us special, detailed information about things that are of spiritual value to our lives. So the Bhagavad Gita is known as the Gita Upanishad, and it is one of the most important Upanishads because this was given directly by the Lord himself. It is spoken directly by the Lord himself. So when we sit and read this, this teaching is vouchsafed. Vouchsafe means it's granted as a privilege or a special favor. So you think, oh, it's just a book. What special favor or privilege? The book or the teaching, like I said, was meant to help all of humanity, especially the disciple that's trying to learn. So it's a treaty, especially for the devotee. It's a collection of information, especially valuable to the devotee, because it is a guidebook. It's a guidebook for this world and for how to get where you need to go after you leave this world. It's a guidebook for now and for after. If you have a body, unfortunately, this body that we received didn't come with a user manual. If I bought a refrigerator or a stove, I get a user manual, which means it tells me how to connect the pipes, where I need to plug it in, how much current it takes, what is the service requirements. If things break down, there's a list of possible causes and then contact details. So much is covered in the user manual. But unfortunately for us, we're born into this world with no user manual, or we're quite unaware that there is a user manual. The Bhagavad Gita, in my understanding, humble understanding, substitutes for us as a user manual, not just for this body, but for the life that we've been given. It is for the bhakta who has a plan, a man with a plan, so to speak. And this is our roadmap to see how well we can live these lives. What was the purpose, first of all, and how well we can live it. To get us to all this information, the Gita brings us to 5 main ideas. The 5 main ideas or points is first, Ishvara. Now, Ishvara is a concept that we have to understand. The second is Jiva, or the soul. The Prakriti, or material nature. Fourth is Kala, or time. And fifth is Karma, our actions. So, when we understand these 5 components and their interactions with each other, we have a very comprehensive and effective understanding of how the world works. So the world that we live in works by a set of rules and regulations, right? We have governments, we cross borders, we show identity, we move into a new place, we have to register ourselves, we get to slowly understand how the systems work there. So like that, this whole universe, this whole world runs on certain sets of rules and principles. And there are certain procedures which we have to follow to get where we need to go. And the Ishvara is the controlling main identity of it all. Ishvara is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. And when we consider Ishvara, we consider that he is the Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. So an independent person would start to inquire, what is his nature? What is he like? Who is he? How does he look? And what is our purpose? What is our connection with him? And that's why we get to the second point, which is Jiva. Who am I? So the Jiva soul is what we call us, individuals. So when we did the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, we covered this. We talked about Ishvara, the Supreme, and Jiva, the Jiva soul. What is the connection between Ishvara and Jiva? How are we? We are part and parcel of the Supreme, but we are small little parts and parcels. We are not as big or as all-encompassing as the Ishvara, because he's the supreme controller. He's the boss, the main controller, and he has all these wonderful opulences. He's full of opulences and he's eternal, which means there's no time on him. He always existed, he will exist, and he will continue to exist. We, on the other hand, are little entities. We are parts and parcels of that Supreme. We came from him. And because of that, we share his tastes and qualities. We are like a copy, a smaller, minute copy of him. But because we are minute particles, Srila Prabhupada gives us a beautiful example of the sun and the sun rays. The rays of sunshine that come from the sun, they bring both the light and warmth of the sun, but they cannot do what the sun can do. They're very minuscule in their ability. And yet they are a part of the sun, right? They represent the sun in every shape, way, and form. In that way, we too are small, minuscule particles of Ishvara. And this is understood by the concept of Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. This is the philosophy that we have to understand. We are Achintya Beda Beda. We are one and yet different. We have oneness in that we are similar to the Lord in many ways. And yet, because we are so small, we are also different from the Lord. But just like the Lord, one advantage is that we are also eternal. This is a concept that we try to understand in the very beginning, the concept of the soul being eternal. So the soul is eternal. Why does this body that we live in not live forever? Would be the next question. And that's where we come to the point of talking about Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. We move into that. So the Jiva soul is eternal, Ishvara is eternal. How about nature, things around us? Is that eternal too? So when we look at the world around us, we notice that there's always creation and destruction, right? Things get created, they last for some time, and then they get destroyed. Have you noticed that that is also true with our bodies? One day we were born so small, we were just babies, and then we grew, we became young children, then we became teenagers, became adults. And as we moved on, we can see all around us that we age, and then at one point, we die. So when we say we are born, we grow, we age, and we die, we have to understand that the we that we're talking about is not really the Jiva soul. The Jiva soul is a spark that moves everything inside us. But the Jiva soul never dies. It's eternal. Whereas the body that we have is a temporary casing, and that will not last. That will at one point give up and give way, and we will have to change that body or that covering. Prakriti is everything that is around us. Prakriti is also changing. As you see, things grow. At one point, they get destroyed. We build buildings. At one point, they get destroyed. So there's constant creation and destruction happening around us. So at some point, sometimes we start to think that maybe Prakriti is also temporary. The Prakriti doesn't last much. But that is not true. Even though Prakriti is going through these cycles of creation and destruction, Prakriti is eternal. Prakriti always exists. And Prakriti or material nature always follows the will of Ishwar. So we see in the Bhagavad Gita 9:10, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. It is by my instruction that material nature functions. So for everything, there is a controller. Just like in a car, if a car is running, there is a motor, right? There's a cause. The motor is running, and that causes the wheels to turn and the car to move. But from outside, we don't see it. Same way, when we look at nature and the world around us, it is difficult for us to recognize that they're actually working under someone else's control. The easiest way to recognize it is to recognize the amazing complexity with which the world around us exists. And a lot of times, even though Darwin may have these theories of evolution, other things, we notice that great scientists always come down to this question, that is it really just evolution, or was it something more? And the more we read the Bhagavad Gita, these questions get answered. Who am I, and what is this body? Who is the supreme controller? What is this world around me, and what is happening? And then the fourth one is Kala or time. So when we get to Kala or time, we look at it and we think, oh, time, the passage of time. Everything in this world is expressed through the passage of time. When someone is born, they grow up and they get old, it is passage of time. So when we look at it that way, is time eternal? Is the question. Some people tend to think that just because this material world is created and destroyed, the material world is temporary. The material world is not temporary, it is eternal. Because in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of our texts that we refer to, Srila Prabhupada explains, the Mayavadi philosophers, sometimes they say to us that the material world is mithya. The statement is, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. So they say that this creation around us is temporary and it's basically an illusion. It doesn't really exist. But when you look at the shloka itself, it says Satyakrit, which means created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satyam Param. So when somebody who is full of Satya, when the Lord himself creates, how can that which he creates not be eternal? So that is how Srila Prabhupada explains this. He says, the very word Satyakrit, which is used to establish that everything created by the Lord is factual and never false. Creation may be temporary because it gets destroyed. But the fact that things were created and then it was later destroyed is not an illusion. It is true in itself. So because Prakriti goes through cycles, we are under the idea that Prakriti actually doesn't exist. It comes and goes, but it's not. Sometimes it is manifest and sometimes it is unmanifest, but it always eternally exists. So then how about Kala? What do we do about time? When we look at time, we understand Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11 says, Kalo asmi lokakshaya krit pravritto. The Supreme Personality, he explains in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, I am the great destroyer of the worlds, and I am here to destroy the people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all soldiers will be slain. So this is I think I've gone a little ahead because we want to do the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But this is basically a concept that time, eternal time, is the primeval source of all interactions. So time is the basis in which Prakriti interacts. And because of the interactions of Prakriti and time, we have karma. We have the jiva interacting with both, and we trigger karma. So one thing I really liked with time is that I had this question when I was reading, that if there is a beginning and an end to time, why do we consider time to be eternal? Shouldn't time also be temporary? Because our actions are temporary. So time should also be temporary. But as I kept reading, I realized that if we read a little bit more into the scriptures and understand the purpose and the characteristics of time, it becomes much easier for us to understand. Srila Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:10-11, he says, eternal time, Maitreya is saying this. He says, eternal time is the primeval source of interactions of the three modes. It is unchangeable and limitless, and it works as the instrument of the Supreme for his pastimes in material creation. So it explains that no one knows where time began, and no one knows when it will end. It is time only that can keep a record of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material manifestation. This time factor is the material cause of creation and is therefore a self-expansion of the personality of Godhead. Time is considered the impersonal feature of the Lord. So just like when we first discussed the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, we covered the three aspects of the Paramatma, right? Of Ishwar. We have the Bhagavan, who is the main form. We have the Paramatma, the localized version. And then we have Brahman, which is the absolute, which is basically in the form of energy. So when we talk about three forms and we're talking about Kala, we have to understand that anything connected to the Lord is spiritual by nature. And because the time factor is also an expansion of the Lord, it is also eternal, because the Lord is also eternal. The time factor, when we see in Hebrew literature also, it is covered that time factor is accepted in Hebrew literature as the same as a spirit. It's accepted as a representation of God. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets. So in time, metaphysically, also time is distinguished as absolute and real. Absolute time is continuous and unaffected by speed or slowness of material things. Time is astronomically and mathematically calculated in relation to speed, change, and life of a particular object. Factually, however, time has nothing to do with relativity. Rather, everything is shaped and calculated in terms of the facility offered by time. So what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say, sometimes it goes over our heads. What he's trying to say is there are many representations of time. We find it in other religions. We find it even in science. But what's very important for us to understand is time is the basic measurement of our activity. Things happen, can be measured by time. Time is how we calculate past, present, and future. But in factual calculation, time has really no beginning or end. Chanakya Pandit says that even a slight fraction of time cannot be purchased with millions of dollars. Sorry, millions of dollars. Therefore, even a moment of time that we lost is something we cannot get back. It is the greatest loss of life. So this is one of the concepts which we cover, which is time. The fifth concept that is covered in the Bhagavad Gita is karma. Now, karma is a result of activities, and karma is the only thing that is not eternal. Karma is temporary. So karma happens and we can change karma. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, karma is changeable because when we choose to live a life of goodness and carry on our activities as instructed by the Supreme, then we are in a position to change our karma. Karma arises from the activities of a living entity. Karma can be good or it can be bad. And karma accrues for us from time immemorial. But even though we've been gathering it over time, karma is not eternal. Karma can be changed. So we come to the question, why are we learning these 5 things? These 5 things, the interaction of these 5 things is the summum bonum of what's happening all around us. Recognizing that there's an Ishwar, understanding who we are, the Jiva soul, making a connection with the Ishwar, understanding our relationship with that controller, and the way we respond and interact with Prakriti or material nature, the impact of time on Prakriti and Jiva. What is the effect of time on the world around us and on ourselves, and the effect of our actions is a combined instruction that we get from the Bhagavad Gita. So, what is the situation where this discourse happens? That is covered by setting the scene. So I thought, why don't we just read setting the scene? It's really small. So we're back to the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita covers all this information, these 5 topics, and it covers them not very heavy. It's very light. But when we do start off, it sounds a little heavy. I noticed that when I was reading it, it sounded a little heavy, but it's not that heavy. It's actually very simple. What's very important with reading the Bhagavad Gita is to read it again and again. Because the Bhagavad Gita doesn't give everything in one shot. We are not prepared to receive everything in one shot. It's like the petals of a lotus that open out. And in that way, the Bhagavad Gita also opens to us. Just as much as our realization and our understanding increases, we start to see more and more in the words of the Bhagavad Gita. So the most important thing with understanding the Bhagavad Gita is to read it again and again over time. So let's see what is happening in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita. We covered all this. Now we've reached Bhagavad Gita. We want to open chapter 1, but before that, we want to understand what is the situation? Why is Arjuna in a field of battle? Why is he at a critical moment in his life and in need of such instruction? So setting the scene is what the publishers have given us in the beginning of the book. It tells us what's been happening before. And it says, Dhritarashtra and Pandu are on opposing sides. Dhritarashtra's children and Pandu's children are on opposing sides. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty. They descended from King Bharata, a former ruler of the earth, from which the name Mahabharata comes. Because Dhritarashtra was the elder brother but was born blind, the throne that would have been his was passed down to his younger brother, Pandu. Pandu died at an early age. He left behind 5 children, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva. And they all came under the care of the elder brother, Dhritarashtra, who in effect, for the time being, because he was taking care of them, again he got the opportunity to become the king. The sons of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military arts by the expert Drona and counseled by their revered grandfather of the clan, Bhishma. So Drona and Bhishma took it upon themselves. Drona taught the military arts and Bhishma guided them. Bhishma is their grandfather. So the sons of Dhritarashtra and Pandu grew up together in this way. And yet, especially the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, always hated and envied the Pandavas. Basically because the kingdom was theirs. Pandu was the king, and after him, the kingdom would pass to his children. So they were only enjoying this for a temporary period of time. The blind and weak-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, not that of Pandu, to inherit the kingdom. Thus, Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the sons of Pandu. It was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandavas escaped many attempts on their life. Lord Krishna is not an ordinary man, but the supreme Godhead himself. He descended to earth and was playing the role of a prince in a contemporary dynasty. In this role, he was also the nephew of Pandu's wife Kunti, or Pritha, the mother of the Pandavas. So both as a relative and an eternal upholder of religion, Krishna favored the righteous, which is the sons of Pandu, and he protected them. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match, and in course of that fateful tournament, the Pandavas lost all their possessions. And their wife, Draupadi, was insulted and stripped before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna intervened to save her, but the gambling match that was there was rigged, and the Pandavas were cheated out of their kingdom and forced into 13 years of exile. This ended, and the Pandavas returned home, rightfully requesting their kingdom back from Duryodhana, but Duryodhana bluntly refused. The Pandavas requested just 5 villages. They said, we don't need much, just give us 5 villages and we'll accept. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he would not spare them even land of the size to drive in a pin. Not even a pin-sized land would he offer them. And through all these troubles and tribulations, the Pandavas, who had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, realized that now war was inevitable. As the princes of the worlds divided, some siding Dhritarashtra's sons and others siding Pandava, Krishna himself took the role of messenger and went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. His pleas were refused and war became certain. The Pandavas were men of high moral stature and they recognized Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead, whereas the impious sons of Dhritarashtra did not. Krishna offered to enter the war according to their desire. As God, he would not personally fight, but he offered whomsoever desired, himself and his army. So in this option, Duryodhana snatched Krishna's army for himself, and the Pandavas, equally eager to have the association of Krishna, asked him to support them by himself. So in this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna. So the question always starts with a picture where we have Arjuna and Krishna on a chariot. The question is, if they're cousins, they should be of equal stature. Why is Krishna the charioteer of Arjuna? Because he chose to. Out of his deep love and affection and friendship and relation, he chose to be the charioteer of Arjuna. And in that way, the two of them end up in this battlefield of Kurukshetra. This is the scene. So as we read, we notice that if you go into the Bhagavad Gita, it's a set of verses. And the verses start off they're all in Sanskrit in a certain meter. But today we will only read the English, so we can start covering this. And it's understandable by everybody. So when we look at chapter 1, which is observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, we realize that the chapter divides into parts. So here is Arjuna on the chariot with Krishna, who is the charioteer, and they are one of many, many people in that vast land of Kurukshetra. The Mahabharata is written in a story form, and this special conversation, the Bhagavad Gita, is placed right in the middle at this specific moment in that story. So that's why when we take the Bhagavad Gita, we are especially focused on the instructions of the Lord. We are not exactly interested on the big, long story, even though the story is equally important and it's very interesting and extremely useful. It covers so many points. We stick to the Bhagavad Gita because these are the direct instructions of the Lord, and this is what we want to focus on. So when we open to chapter 1, unlike the other parts in the Bhagavad Gita where there is a discussion, chapter 1 is the chapter 1 and a little bit in the last chapter is the only part where the story in the Mahabharata, you can see the story entering the text. So let's see, it starts off with Dhritarashtra saying to Sanjaya. Now Dhritarashtra, as you remember, is the current reigning king, and his sons are the ones refusing to give the throne. He is sitting with Sanjaya, and Sanjaya is a very special person. Sanjaya, because he's the disciple of Vyasa, has this unique ability to see places where he cannot actually be. So he's able to have, it's called Dirgha Drishti, he's able to see things that are happening far away. And because of that, Sanjaya is the right person to sit with Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra wants to know. He is really, really interested in knowing what is happening in the battlefield. Because he's blind, he stays home, he's back home at the palace. And his conversation is, he's asking Sanjaya, Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So that is the first question. And from there, we start this chapter. In the chapter, first is in the palace. Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra are talking. Then the scene shifts to the battlefield where Duryodhana is assessing his army. He's taking a look. There is the blowing of the conches, which is the heralding of the start of the fight. And then Arjuna is curious to know who is fighting against him. So he's requesting Krishna to take him to the middle of the field to see who is on the other side, who are the people. And from there starts, well, you'll see, from there starts the problem. So, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Sanjaya and Dhritarashtra, these are the first two shlokas. So, this is the question he's asking. What did they do? So, when I was reading that, I was thinking, is this not every parent's concern? What's my kid doing? Did he do it? Did he do it right? Did he follow my instruction? Is it going to happen the way I expected? So Dhritarashtra is concerned. But is he concerned about both parties? No. Dhritarashtra's concern is always about his children. And he wants to know, are they going to fight or not? Because for quite a long time, the Pandavas have been trying to avoid the fight. They've been trying as much as possible to go peacefully. They're not holding a grudge. They're willing to let go of their, the fact that they are the princes and need to inherit the kingdom. They're willing to let that go. They're willing to take just 5 villages, just anything, so long as they don't have to fight their own family. And in the end, just as Dhritarashtra wants, and which is why he's following his children's instructions, he's supporting them in every way. He wants a battle, and he wants to know from Sanjaya, is the battle going to happen? And it's beautiful to see that in his description, in the shloka itself, he says, Mamaka Pandavaschaiva. So he's asking, in Kurukshetra, he says, my sons and the sons of Pandu. And in this way, he is separating the Pandavas. The Kuru dynasty consists of all of them, right? But in his eyes, he's removing the Pandavas and considering them as outsiders, not a part of his dynasty. He considers them as excluded. And he wants to know, my sons and those Pandavas, what are they doing? Why is Dhritarashtra a little concerned? He's concerned because of this first part of the shloka that says, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. In the land of Kurukshetra, which is a place of pilgrimage, Dharma Kshetra. Kshetra means place, and Dharma means acts of Dharma. Basically, is a place of pilgrimage. In this place of pilgrimage, which is so auspicious and which supports all things holy and just, Dhritarashtra is concerned that their unjust cause may not be served. He's also concerned that Krishna is personally present on the side of the Pandavas. And because of this, he's asking Sanjaya, what is going on? Now, please tell me. Sanjaya is able to observe, and he reassures the king by telling him, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Well, he's not king yet, but they do call him King Duryodhana because he's managing the affairs. And he says he has gone to meet his teacher. Now, we remember I introduced the scene when I said there is Drona and there is Bhishma. Bhishma is family, he's a grandfather. Drona is the teacher. He taught him military arts. So Duryodhana is going to check the military strength and discuss the details with Drona. And why is Sanjaya saying this? He's saying this to reassure the king that yes, there is going to be a battle. Don't worry. He's going to go and discuss things. See, Prabhupada explains very nicely in the purport. Dhritarashtra was blind, but he wasn't just blind physically, materially. He was also spiritually blind. He did not want to consider any of the obvious visible clues. He was bereft of any spiritual vision. He knew very well his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were pious by birth. But still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage and wanted to make sure that no compromise was reached. Sanjaya wanted to encourage the despondent king and assured him his sons were not going to make any compromise. They were going to have a battle. In this situation, we see Srila Prabhupada brings out an analogy. He says, just like in a field of paddy, where we pull out the weeds to help the right plants grow, in this field of Kurukshetra, where Sri Krishna is present, he is the father of religion, he is going to pull out the unwanted plants, the irreligious persons, like Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana and others, and wipe them out, thereby establishing the righteous religion and establishing dharma there. So he says, this is the significance of the place Kurukshetra, the Dharma Kshetra. What is Duryodhana up to? Our scene moves to the actual army and it will stay there in the battlefield. Duryodhana is talking to Dhritarashtra. Duryodhana is talking to Drona. And as he converses with Drona, he tells, O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Now, Drupada is, the story of Drupada and Drona goes back to the point where Drupada is actually Drona's disciple. Even though Drupada had actually, Drupada was entrusted to him for military education. Drishtadyumna took the side of the Pandavas, and it's he who arranged for their military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. And Duryodhana is annoyed, and he's pointing out this mistake of Dronacharya by saying, you should not have given him this instruction. Look, he has taken the other side, and he's going to use all this knowledge against us. But Dronacharya, who was very liberal Brahmana, did not hesitate to impart his military training to the son of Drupada, Drishtadyumna, who was entrusted to him, because he believed that it had to be given to everybody equally. So Duryodhana says, you have these weaknesses. Look how people are taking advantage of you. And because Arjuna is his very, very, we would say, pet disciple, his favorite disciple, Duryodhana is trying to warn him, do not make the same mistake of being lenient again, because it is going to cost us this war. So in his own way, now Duryodhana is amazingly good at presenting things. He's really politically very smart, and he's a diplomat. So when he says things to people, he has a subtle way of hinting and pointing out to what he wants to say. And he is warning Drona to not be lenient when this war starts. And after that, he goes on to compare the two armies. He's looking at the other army, and he realizes the might of the other army on the other side with the Pandavas is really huge. But he doesn't say that. Instead, he talks about the strength of his own army, in a way trying to reassure himself that everything's going to be okay. He says, we have here in this army are many heroic bowmen, equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yudhana, Viratha, Drupada. There are great, heroic, powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kasi Raja, Purujit, Kunti Bhoja, Saibya. He's listing all these eminent fighters. He says there's the mighty Yuyudhamanyu, the very powerful Uttamaoja, and the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great charioteers. But for your information, O best of Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains especially qualified to lead my military force. So he's trying to compare between the forces across from him, which I just listed, and the forces on his side. He says, there are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwatthama, Vikarna, sons of Somadatta, called Bhurishwara, who are always victorious in battle. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake, all of them well equipped with different kinds of weapons, experienced in military science. So what he's doing is making a comparison. Now, why is Duryodhana comparing? Because he's a little nervous. He sees this huge strength of army on the opposite side, and he's telling Drona, first he tells Drona, do not be lenient. We can't afford it. Then he tells him, look at the other army. He's starting to say, look at all these great fighters. There is Bhima, there's Arjuna, and then there are so many other fighters there. But look at us. We are no less. We are no short. We have so many great personalities here. And these people, they're willing to die for me. They are so loyal. Prabhupada says, even in this shloka, there is a hint of the fact that ultimately they are all going to die. He says, because they are supporting irreligion and they're supporting the weak-minded Duryodhana, they are ultimately not going to win the war. And even though they are loyal to him and willing to die, ultimately they will actually have to die for him. This comparison moves on as he says, I have Bhishma Pitama, who is such a great person, our grandsire, and his energy and strength, his bala, is unlimited. Whereas for them, they are being led by Bhima, and Bhima's strength and ability is only limited. So in that sense, he tries to reassure himself that everything is fine. He has the better army. He has the stronger captain. He has a stronger, general. And because of that, he has a higher chance of winning this war. So the whole first chapter starts off with Duryodhana doing this comparison of the two forces. Our strength is immeasurable, says Duryodhana. We are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. Having said this, he turns to his generals and he says, all of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance in the phalanx of the army. So first he appreciates Bhishma. He says he is the greatest. Without him, he's very sure that we cannot win the war. But at the same time, the diplomat in him realizes he has to also support the other generals who have come to help him. He cannot just give support to Bhishma and not encourage the others, it will look like he's being partial towards his grandfather. So he looks at them and says, all of you, you are so strong, you are so great. Now please come and support Bhishma so that together all of us can cooperatively win this war. So he is trying to tell them, Bhishma Dev is undoubtedly a great hero, but he's old. He's an old man. So he also needs protection from all sides. So he might be engaged in the fight and the enemy might take advantage of his engagement. So please protect him, come together, and with your strength together, we can win this war. This is what Duryodhana is conversing. And we have Sanjaya telling Dhritarashtra what has happened. He's able to see it in his mind's eye. The moment Bhishma notices that Duryodhana is making all these comparisons in front of Drona, he realizes the heart of his grandson. And Bhishma is well aware that this is a lost battle. And yet to support and encourage his grandson and for him to feel strengthened by the thought that, Bhishma is supporting him and he will do it. He will fight the battle for him. No matter what the outcome, he will do his best. Bhishma decides to cheer him up, and in that way, he blows the conch. Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch very loudly, making the sound like a roar of a lion, giving Duryodhana joy. So he could understand the nervousness of Duryodhana, and to try to cheer him up, he blows the conch. But at the same time, after he blows the conch, other conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns are all sounded from Duryodhana's side, and the sound is considered tumultuous. Moment they hear it, what does the other side do? They also blow their conch. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conches, their conch shells. Now, if you see the description, when Duryodhana's party blew the conch, there is no mention of the word transcendental. But when Arjuna and Krishna blow their conches, the word transcendental comes into play. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, there was never any hope of victory for the other side, because Krishna was on the side of the Pandavas. Jayastu Panduputranam Yesham Pakshe Janardhana. They will win because on their side is the Lord Janardhana. Victory is always with persons like sons of Pandu because Lord Krishna is associated with them. Whenever and wherever the Lord is present, we must notice that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi, is always present with him. Therefore, victory and fortune both await the Pandavas at the end of this battle. And this is indicated by the words transcendental in the conch shells. Besides, Srila Prabhupada, notice that this chariot that Arjuna is sitting on has been lent to him by Agnidev, the Lord of Fire. Agnidev's chariot, the Lord of Fire's chariot, is indicative of the fact that it is capable. This chariot is exceptionally capable. It is capable of conquering all sides, wherever it was drawn over the three worlds. Therefore, this is a chariot that has never met defeat. It is an extremely capable and competent chariot. And this chariot being with Arjuna is another indication that they are going to win. When they blow the conch shell, that is a beautiful description of the names of these conch shells in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1. It says, Panchajanyam Rishikesho Devadattam Dhananjaya Paundram Dadamau Mahashankam Bhima Karma Vrikodara. So this is Sanskrit. I'm reading the Sanskrit verse itself. And in this it says, Lord Krishna blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his Devadatta. And Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, that is meaning, Bhima, he blew his terrific conch shell called Paundra. Here, Srila Prabhupada says, in this shloka, Krishna is being called Rishikesha. So as you observe in the first chapter, you will notice Krishna being called various different names, and each is a description of some special quality or attribute of Krishna. So here he says Rishikesha is the owner of all senses. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, their senses are also parts and parcels of his senses. The Lord, situated in the hearts of all living entities, directs their senses, but he directs them in terms of surrender and not in terms of enjoyment. In the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Lord directly controls the transcendental senses of Arjuna. Thus, the name Rishikesha is being used. So there are a lot of references. Even the names that are being used have reasons. And it's really amazing to read through Srila Prabhupada's purports because he gives us the inside story. You know, the inside, there's an inside, what do we call it? Inside story, inside sweep, which we will not get if we just read the actual translations. Purports are very important when reading the Bhagavad Gita because it is a window into the actual story. It tells us more. We are now along text 17-18. Once Panchajanyam and Devadatta are blown, Paundra is blown, then the others also start blowing their conches. Yudhishthira, the son of Kunti, blows his conchal, Ananta Vijaya. And then Sahadev blows Sughosha, Nakula blows Sughosha, and Sahadev blows Manipushpaka. These are the 5 brothers. The great archer, the king of Kashi, the fighter Shikandi, Drishtadyumna, Virata, Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and the other kings, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their conchals. So everybody is blowing. Can you imagine the sound of so many conchals? First, Dhritarashtra's side, Duryodhana, and all of them blew their conchals. On the other side, the Pandavas, all the 5 sons, and then all their great leaders, all blow their conchals. And the description goes, the blowing of these different conchals became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth, and it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Now, when Duryodhana's conchal, his side, the conchals were blown, there was no such fear or concern or trepidation in the hearts of the Pandavas or their army. But when the Pandavas and their army blew their conchal, it's said here that it shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Why does it express that? Because the sound vibrated by the Pandavas' party was with so much confidence because they had Lord Krishna on their side. And the confidence resounded in the sound of the conches and it scared them. It scared Duryodhana's army. One who takes the shelter of the Supreme Lord has nothing to fear, says Srila Prabhupada. Even in the midst of the greatest calamity, they will find great courage and confidence. At the time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot behind the flag marked with Hanuman, took his bow and prepared to shoot. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna spoke to Lord Krishna in these words. So Arjuna is sitting on a chariot, and if we notice, in that chariot, there are some interesting facts. He's sitting on a chariot with a flag of Hanuman. So Prabhupada says here, with the flag of Hanuman, when one is sitting there, he says he has Krishna, who in another form is Rama, and he has Hanuman. Now both Rama and Hanuman were present on the chariot of Arjuna to help him. Lord Krishna is Rama himself, and wherever Lord Rama is, his eternal servitor Hanuman and his eternal consort Sita, the goddess of fortune, are present. Therefore, Arjuna has no reason or cause to fear any of his enemies. Above all, the Lord of the senses, Lord Krishna, was personally present to give him direction. Thus, all good counsel was available to Arjuna in the matter of executing the battle. In such auspicious conditions arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, the signs of assured victory lie. So he says there is no doubt that they are going to win because of all these signs. We've got Krishna, we've got Hanuman, we've got Lakshmi Devi, and all of this point towards assured victory. 21 to 22. Remember, we were looking through the list. Let me get back there so I can show you. 21 to 22. So here we are. We blew the conches. The battle's about to start. And there is Arjuna asking, can I see who's going to fight? So he says, show me my enemies. So that's where we are. So before we get there, I picked out some interesting facts about the conch because a lot of us are not quite sure why we blow these conches. I was told it's very auspicious. So the start of every puja, every worship that we do, we blow the conch. But there's so many other reasons to blowing the conch. And I found this in one of our websites. It says that the whole idea of the conch comes from Shankasura, who was a demon, who was troubling the Lord in his avatar as Matsya avatar. Shankasura stole the Vedas and the Lord defeated him. And this conch is actually a part of his ear that the Lord blows after defeating him. So it was a very interesting story of Shankasura. And that is how this conch came to be. And because the Lord blowed through it, and anything that the Lord uses, anything that the Lord carries on his person becomes very auspicious, and therefore we use it. So from this shank came out the sound Om. So when you blow the shank, the sound Om came out in Matsya Avatar, and from that Om, the Vedas all arose again. So the sound from the shank is auspicious. The actual use of the shank itself is auspicious because it's connected to the Lord. It has a lot of, it has a mundane uses also, in that it reminds us, it's a call, a clarion call. It calls us to worship. It also reminds us to focus on the Lord at the time of worship. It brings our attention to the Lord. The shank is also known to destroy enemies, and the sound of the shank is very pleasing to Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune. But also the shank has health benefits. It has the ability to increase our lung capacity, and I think it is also great for the intestines. It helps remedy intestinal issues. So it was some very interesting facts about the conch that I noticed. Okay. And I also wanted to highlight to you that there are these names of the Lord being used all through the chapter. And I brought them here so that I could just share it with all of you. Rishikesha, which is the master of the senses. Madhusudana, the killer of Madhu demon. Govinda, this is pleaser of the cows. Vasudeva, son of Vasudev. Devaki Nandana, Yashoda Nandana. They are sons of Devaki, son of Yashoda. And Parthasarthi, which is a very unusual name, which is used in the flow of this chapter. Parthasarthi being the charioteer of Partha. Sarthi is charioteer. Partha is Arjuna. So the charioteer of Arjuna. So what are these names of the Lord? These names of the Lord are nothing but representations of his characteristics or his attributes or his actions. They are a description of who he is, how he is, what he does. That's why these names are so beautiful, because hidden in them is a certain attribute of the Lord. Even the Pandavas have names. So if you notice, Dhananjaya is another name for Arjuna. Dhananjaya is a name that's given to him because he helped his elder brother amass a lot of wealth when he needed to do his homas, his pujas. And Vrikodara, which is a name given to Bhima. So Vrikodara is voracious. He's a voracious eater, and he's called Vrikodara. So Prabhupada explains, what is the importance of these names? These names are earned when somebody does amazing feats, or he does something miraculous or awe-inspiring. So the fact that even these Pandavas have earned these names stands to show how capable and auspicious these people are. There are no such names for the people in Duryodhana's army. So there is not that much, there's not that much capability or ability on the other side. And he says, this whole battle that is now going to happen is just the effect of Dhritarashtra not being able to control his desire and following his children's wishes blindly. This is the basic cause of this whole battle that is about to start. So here we are. Krishna is driving the chariot to the middle, and he's driving the chariot. So Arjuna's chariot description comes up in the chapter, and that's what I wanted to cover here. It says Arjuna has this beautiful chariot and was given to him, like we said, by Agnidev, and he has beautiful white horses in the front. There is Hanuman on the flagstaff, and it is driven by Krishna. This is the image of the chariot, and that's why I picked this picture. It has a beautiful image of two amazing people on this awe-inspiring chariot. And Prabhupada talks about it a little bit more. He talks about it by discussing Krishna as a chariot driver of Arjuna. So he says Krishna is not just a cousin. He is not just a friend. He is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is the Lord. And Arjuna is in relationship with the Lord. In the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, I remember we covered all this in these points. It's very difficult to cover everything. So we covered this point where, devotees and the Lord, they interact, and their interactions are very sweet. So we are part and parcel of the Supreme, right? We talked about the Jiva and the Ishvara. The Jiva and the Ishvara don't isolate themselves. They're actually very close to each other because they are all about interacting. The Lord is the one who receives our service, and we are the ones who serve. So this relationship of the Lord with his devotees is very, very sweet. It's not like this, God is not like this taskmaster, this, attention seeker, like, oh, you have to do this for me and you better be afraid of me. He's not a demanding, controlling God. He's actually a very sweet and interactive personality. So when we think about the relationship with the Lord and devotees, it's not one of fear or of control. It's one of reciprocation, of one desiring to serve and the other so pleased with the service that he reciprocates in his own way. And he says this image of Krishna being a charioteer of Arjuna is one such sweet reciprocation between the Lord and his devotee. Because the Lord is so generous to his devotee, he's willing to do anything. And in this case, the Lord himself comes and drives the chariot for Arjuna. So this is such a beautiful picture, and it shows the sweetness of the relationship. So Arjuna reaches the center of the battlefield, and the question is, what does Arjuna see when he reaches the center of the battlefield? So here we are. He says, Arjuna having reached there, Krishna turns and looks at Arjuna. He says, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. Partha is a way of addressing Arjuna because he is the son of Pritha or Kunti Devi. He says, Partha, look at all the Kurus. It's basically family, but he's just pointing out, look at all of these people assembled here. And who does Arjuna see when he looks out on the battlefield? And that's where the problem starts. Now, Arjuna is really confident. He has all these auspicious things around him. He has Krishna, Supreme Personality, right with him to guide him. And he is ready to win this war. And he just wants to know, he's interested to know how many people has Duryodhana convinced. I mean, how many people are listening to his evil words and coming to fight us? How many has he actually convinced? And when he goes out there and he looks, he sees a sea of faces, an army of people, all his own. He sees his teachers, grandparents, uncles, father figures, cousins, friends, well-wishers, and an ocean of people, soldiers out there ready to fight. Looking at all this, Arjuna is overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed. He's ready to fight, and the sight of all these people, all his own, upsets him. So he gets very emotional. The question is, what happens? So text 27 says, when the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. He says, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. So what is this emotion that Arjuna is feeling? Prabhupada explains, this is compassion. He's feeling deep compassion. Arjuna is a warrior. What is a warrior doing with compassion? You have to understand, Arjuna is not just a warrior, he's also a devotee. And devotees are known for their soft-heartedness and compassion. They are extremely kind and considerate of people. The thought passes through Arjuna's head that to win this battle, he's going to have to kill so many people. And many of them are his own kith and kin, his own flesh and blood. And he is just overwhelmed by the thought. The Pandavas have been trying to avoid war as much as possible. They have reached a point where there is no other way. And yet, having seen this ocean of humans out there, Arjuna is struggling. He's not struggling because he's not a competent fighter. He's not struggling because he doesn't want to fight. He's struggling because of the nature, the quality of a devotee. He's soft-hearted. In this verse, in this shloka, there's usage of the term Gudakesha. Arjuna is called Gudakesha, one who has conquered sleep. So Prabhupada explains Gudakesha covers not just sleep, but also the idea of sleep, which lies in the mode of ignorance. He says Gudakesha is one who has conquered ignorance. So Arjuna is not somebody who is, very material or emotional. He's actually very spiritually advanced. He has the ability to understand. He's not an ignorant soul. He has conquered the mode of ignorance. And because he's always with Krishna, thinking of Krishna, interacting with Krishna, he is able to conquer not just sleep, he also conquers ignorance. But such is the person, then why is he overwhelmed with these emotions? Let's see. He's speaking, he says, in 28, he says, 28 we read. He says, my whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end, my bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning. Krishna says, Srila Prabhupada says, there are two kinds of trembling of the body. One, body trembles because it's in ecstasy. It's having great joy. The other is because it is trembling out of great fear. Srila Prabhupada says, fear, and he quotes Srimad Bhagavatam 5, 18, 12 for this. He said, Bhayam Dvitiya Viniveshasya. So, 5:18, 12 is Yasyasti Bhaktir Bhagati Kinchana. So that was a description of the devotee, the soft-heartedness of Arjuna. But here, this trembling, the skin burning is Srimad Bhagavatam 11:237, where he says, Bhayam Dvitiya Viniveshata Syat, which means a person is never afraid if he really knows what exactly is his relationship and what exactly is his purpose. Here, Arjuna is very attached to material things. And because of his attachment to material things, he has forgotten his real identity and his best self-interest. He's forgotten what is the best thing for him as a jiva soul. He is just worried about his material attachments. So in this shloka, he says, Nimittani Viparitani. Nimittani Viparitani is the expression that Arjuna is using to describe his situation. And Srila Prabhupada says, this expression, Nimittani Viparitani, means he is seeing nothing but calamity. He sees nothing but calamity from this war. The outcome he feels is nothing but calamity. He says, Prabhupada says, when people are very, very attached to material nature, then this kind of situation where they become very overwhelmed happens. Their senses get overwhelmed, their mind gets overwhelmed, and in frustration, the person starts to think, why am I here? What am I even doing here? Have you noticed how sometimes we get what am I doing here? When things are out of our control, we don't want to be involved in that situation anymore. We get to a point where we feel, why am I here? And Arjuna is reaching that point where he says, why am I fighting? What is this all about? I mean, I don't see the benefit. And Arjuna at that point gets very bewildered. He gets very bewildered. Arjuna, Prabhupada says, has now forgotten his self-interest. That is the word that Srila Prabhupada uses. He says self-interest. So he goes on to explain that a person who does not have an understanding of his own self-interest will never be able to understand what is good and what is right. Because a person's self-interest is always in connecting themselves to Vishnu. Without knowing that one's self-interest is Vishnu, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the causes of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have forgotten the moral codes for a Kshatriya. It is said two kinds of men, namely the Kshatriya who dies directly in battlefield, and the person in the renounced order of life, who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are both able to enter into the sun glow. And that is their that's their benefit of being in these jobs. And one of those benefits is for Arjuna, because he's a warrior. If he dies in battle, he gets liberated. But he's not even able to see that that is what he's supposed to do. That is his self-interest. He cannot choose not to fight in this situation. One, because he's a warrior. That is his dharma. He needs to fight. And also because by fighting in a righteous battle, which this is, because he's on the side of righteousness, he attains salvation. And that is one of the only two ways to attain it. So it is in his self-interest to fight. But at this point, he's so overwhelmed with his attachments, he's unable to see what is beneficial to him. And Arjuna goes on in this state of mind to quote to Krishna so many reasons why this battle is completely wrong. Now, here is a person who just a few minutes ago was ready to fight. But the moment he sees all these people, his own flesh and blood on the other side, his own friends, people in whom he has vested interest, people in whom he is attached, these material attachments overwhelm him, and he starts to think about all the reasons why he cannot kill, forgetting the main reason why he should go ahead and consider following his dharma. He says, nothing good can come from this, Arjuna, O Krishna. Killing our own kinsmen, there is no good reason why one should kill his own people. He says, what is the use of killing when we are killing the people we care about? By killing these people, what will I gain? He says, they may want to kill me. That is their evil thought process. But I know better, right? These are my own people. By killing them, what benefit can I attain? What is the pleasure of killing your own family? If I kill them, I will be sinning. Sin will overcome me. Since I know the cost of fighting this battle and they do not, why should I even participate? I have the right to refuse. I would like to refuse to fight this battle. He says, when I fight this battle, all these people on the other side are going to die. And in the process, I will be destroying a whole dynasty. When a dynasty is destroyed, then the elders in that family all pass away. And there is nobody to guide the rest of the family in following family traditions. The loss of these family traditions promotes irreligion in the family. The women and children who are protected and guided by these elders then become exposed to people who have ill will or ill intention. And in the process, the women will become polluted. And then because of that pollution, they will end up having unwanted progeny. Children who are not born in a proper, legal format, they will end up having children out of wedlock. They'll end up having children with people with whom they do not have any proper relationship or connection. And all this will create unwanted progeny. When they do this, their family life will become hell. And because we are the people who did this to them, our life will also become hell. Now, in the process of following family traditions, the ancestors have to be given regular offerings. With the elders gone and without the guidance and just these women and children, no such offerings will be made. When this is not made, the ancestors will fall down. Because of this kind of unwanted progeny, all types of community projects and welfare work will also stop. These community projects and welfare work is all being undertaken so that it can help the public take to spiritual consciousness and find their way back home, back to God. It's a process of religious. It's a process. These community projects help the public. It is spiritually enlightening for them. If this public work stops, then all this benefit to public will also no longer happen. He says, I have heard from authority that those whose family traditions are destroyed will always live in hell. So these are my extended family. These are people I care about, my kith and kin. Not only will I be ruining their dynasty, the effect of doing that will make my life hell. I will have nobody to show off to. I mean, I may amass all this wealth, I may get the kingdom, but what is the end result if my own people are gone? Whom am I going to show it to? Whom am I going to share it with? And by killing so many people, the resultant effect of this kind of destruction is so bad, not just for their family, but in impact on me and the impact on society as a whole. And in future, they will suffer because their ancestors have not been taken care of. And in future, they will also end up going to hell. I do not see even one good reason to fight. So woe is me. I like that concept because Arjuna is at this point just done. He has convinced himself with his own arguments that there is no reason for him to fight. There is absolutely no good reason. And then driven by this desire, he finally wraps up by telling Krishna, driven by this desire for this royal happiness, we are considering committing such great sin. Better that the sons of Dhritarashtra just kill me as I stand unarmed and unresisting. What does he mean by that? Usually the rule in battlefield is that if you're unarmed and unresisting, they should not kill you. They should not attack. But he says, even that kind of behavior, I will tolerate. I will tolerate it all. I will just not fight. Look, nothing is good is coming, Krishna, from this fight. I don't want to do it. If they want to, let them come and kill me. I will not fight. And thus, his mind overwhelmed with grief, Arjuna cast aside the bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot. So this is his state of mind at this point. We started off in a battle where everything was auspicious. Everything was hinting towards victory. And we're ending the chapter at a point where Arjuna, their biggest, greatest bowsman, he is their biggest winning. Just as they have Bhishma there, they have Arjuna here. They're depending on him to win this battle for them. And here is this great warrior. He is in no position to fight. So look at how the tables are turning. Amazing flow in this story. And this is the beauty of the Mahabharata. It goes through so many twists and turns, so many plots and inner plots, so many convoluted thoughts. It cannot compare to any of the things we can see in today's screen, even though there's so much out there. People are putting out so much content, so many dramas, melodramas, so many things. The Mahabharata has every possible situation. And in that lies this wonderful, beautiful Bhagavad Gita, which is an instruction manual for each and every one of us. It helps us to understand who we are, what is our connection with the world around us, who is in charge. Certainly not us. Who is in charge? What is our relationship with that person? And how our behavior, our actions influence our life, and what it is we must do. How should we interact with the world around us, with the Lord, and how should we behave so that we may eventually find the purpose of our lives and live peaceful, happy, and spiritually enlivening lives. And in the end, go back home, back to Godhead, find our real purpose. So chapter 1 ends with this kind of kashmakash, we say in Hindi. It is what will happen now situation. And it's beautiful how even Krishna has a beautiful way of presenting, what's the next episode? And that's where we end. Will Arjuna get back up and fight? What can Krishna do to help his emotionally overwhelmed friend? Is there a solution to this war? And is war really the answer? Arjuna is asking, is war the answer? Even though he knows he's tried everything else, diplomacy failed. Even Krishna tried, and there was no way to get out of it. So he's a bit confused, and we need to figure out what's going to happen next in chapter 2, entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. So these statements of Arjuna carry on into chapter 2. He continues to have this conversation with Krishna, explaining how this is not a good idea. And he gets to a point where he's utterly overwhelmed and confused. And he says, you know what? I don't trust my mind anymore. I cannot find a solution. So Krishna, I will depend on you. I will depend on you. So surrender unto me is a statement. Surrendering is the concept. And Arjuna finally surrenders. He asks Krishna to guide him. He says, I'm going to listen to you. You be my master. You guide me. Tell me what is right. And at that point, he starts to find all the answers to his questions. I've always found the first chapter very interesting because when he says, Vepatu me sharire, my body is, I'm sweating, I feel so hot, my skin is burning, I'm just jittery. It reminds me a lot of a panic attack. I don't know if you have experienced a panic attack. It's very similar symptoms where you are totally overwhelmed and you just don't know what to do. It's the whole situation is overwhelming you. And that is the mood of Arjuna. This great charioteer who has fought amazing battles, whom nobody has won, is now unwilling to fight. So this is chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. I know I covered a little bit of the introduction in the beginning, but I only covered like parts of it. I do recommend that before you start the Bhagavad Gita, you read the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita to get a general idea of all the points. It may not stay because it takes a long time to, digest all these different points. But most important thing is that it gives us an idea of who we are, what we are, and that's really important. The first and most important thing we should all know is we are not this body. And Krishna talks about that in chapter 2. He starts explaining who we really are. Who am I? Am I this person? Am I this body? Or am I something else? And that is what is explained when I did the 5 different parts that are covered. The Jiva soul, and who is the Jiva soul? What is his connection with the Lord? What is his connection with Prakriti? Why is he a tatastha, a marginal Shakti? Why is his energy marginal? And how does he fall between the two of them? All this gets covered. We have 18 chapters, and in these 18 chapters, there are questions and there are answers and there are explanations. And as we read through this Bhagavad Gita, we will get a deeper and deeper understanding of the world around us and who we are. And that really, really brings a lot of peace and solace to our mind and heart. Because Prabhupada brought up that point that, fear comes from not knowing who we really are. Fear comes from not understanding who's in charge. Fear comes from not knowing what is the relationship between the Lord and us and the world around us. That's where fear starts. So conquer fear by reading Bhagavad Gita. Get a deeper understanding of your life and the world around you. And find the happiness that you so deserve to have. Find the peace and calm that is so necessary for us to live this life. So do try to read the Bhagavad Gita. Any questions? Anything that you'd like to ask me? Anything I did not say right? Anything you want to correct? More than welcome. Please let me know. Would love to hear from you. If there's anything you want me to do better, love to hear. So let me know.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I think there is a question on the Zoom. And there is also a question in the Zoom chat, but yeah, you can take your...
in Hari Bhakti Vilas, it says that women should not blow the conch. Well, I have not fully read. Yeah. Conch, wear the right spiral. Do you know if the conch shall wear the right spiral? I think he's asking how to hold the conch, right? So the spiral of the conch ends on this side. No, okay. Prabhu, you can unmute. Oh, there are 2 kinds of conches. Well, I'm not an expert on conches, though I do blow the conch every time I do puja.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I don't have the camera.
No worries.
Please accept my humble obeisances. So I was studying about the conch shell, and there is most conch shells have the inner inside of them, the spiral goes to the left. And then there's a special, very rare conch shell, which is, from the inside spirals to the right.
Wow.
Like, when we circumambulate the deities or Prabhupada, we always go clockwise. So yes. Most conch shells are counterclockwise, but there's these special conch shells that are clockwise. Certain parts in the world only to be found, and they're spiraling clockwise. And I researched, they sell them super expensive in South India and stuff like that because they're so rare. So I was wondering if...
Well, I don't have much information on the conches.
Yeah.
And, in the temple, actually, we are already provided with the conches. There's never been an opportunity for me to go and look through these variants and see which is a better one.
Yeah, if you look for that, you'll see the prices are just insane because just of that feature. And I don't know what...
I suppose.
Like, I'm curious why is it like a different sound, or why is it so expensive or special?
Does it have a different sound? Have you tried it?
No, I don't have. I've never been in touch with one of those.
I have never heard a different sound coming from a conch. Maybe it's noticeable. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's more to do with auspiciousness.
I'm thinking it's just so esoteric. As I just wonder,
Wow.
But in
Yeah.
the Hari Bhakti Vilas, it does mention that
Men should not
if a
blow the
woman
conch.
blows a conch shell, Lakshmi Devi runs away, because I guess if you want to be poor and you're a woman, you can blow the conch shell.
Conch shell,
But
yes.
I don't know why there's such an instruction, but it is
Actually,
there.
a lot of times, Srila Prabhupada explains, the thing is, the explanation to the concept of women does not pop up as often as these contradictory concepts pop up. So, Srila Prabhupada explains that, for men, there's so many controversial statements that Srila Prabhupada pops up when it comes to women. He says women, associating with women is always a downfall. Women are very sentimental. Women are this, women are that. But then, he also says women should be protected. They should stay under the care of their husband, first their father, then their husband, and after that their son, or should be with a brother. They cannot be alone. So many rules and regulations. And if you notice with the Hari Bhakti Vilas, the instructions are basically for men, because they are the pujaris, they are the brahmanas. The pujaris' wives, usually, if you notice, even in South India, you don't see women pujaris. You always see men as pujaris, and women have a supportive role of cooking the prasadam, preparing the garlands, doing everything. But the active pujari role is always the man. I have never, I'm not
in general, yeah,
in our regular temples, any female pujaris. But that is not the case with ISKCON. When Srila Prabhupada founded ISKCON, first thing he taught us, the first rule for every person in ISKCON is to remember, you are not this body. You are a spirit soul trying to go back home, back to Godhead. So maybe the effects of the body will be felt in your nature, your tendencies, because it's a female body. It'll be felt in your cleanliness, in because of the way the body is made. Women have certain days where their cleanliness is less or more. Yes, all that will exist. But as long as you don't keep constantly identifying yourself with the tendencies of a female form, if you can stay focused on the fact that this is not the real you, that you are a spirit soul and you are here so that you may start your spiritual journey and understand that and work towards that, then these definitions do not apply.
I see. When there were inaugurating...
When we say in general public, men and women, these definitions apply. But we do not apply it in ISKCON, because the first step in ISKCON is always to remember, man, woman is a gender, but you are beyond that, you're a spirit soul. If you work with that understanding, then these shackles no longer bind you. Otherwise, Prabhupada would have kept women away from Pujari service, would have kept them from a lot of things, but he did not. He always treated us as equals. He always gave us every opportunity to grow side by side. He understood the nature of the bodies, but he also taught us to recognize the real self. And if you can recognize the real self, then you rise above the limitations of that body.
But you see, the example is we were talking about, or you were talking about Bhagavad Gita, and the whole Bhagavad Gita is full of Krishna telling Arjuna that you're a Kshatriya, you're a Kshatriya, you're a Kshatriya. He tells like how many times you're a Kshatriya, you're a Kshatriya. So he's very, very adamant about his current body, although we could say...
He's explaining it's not about the body. He doesn't keep telling you're a man, you're a man, you're a man. He tells him, this is your nature, you're a Kshatriya. So when we go ahead in the Bhagavad Gita, we will cover that with the Varnashrama. We talk about your innate nature, what kind of job you are naturally suited to. So he's a Kshatriya by nature. A Kshatriya by nature, Krishna explains later on, you do the job that's suited to you. Don't try to be what you're not.
Correct.
And in that job, you will attain perfection if you constantly do it with your mind on me. Man mana bhava mad bhakto, mad yati mam namaskuru. He doesn't say a person working with computers cannot become a bhakta. He doesn't say a Kshatriya cannot become a bhakta. So Arjuna has these aspects. He is a son, he is all this materially, but he's a devotee spiritually. And the devotee aspect of Arjuna overcomes everything else. He's listening to Krishna because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the Lord instructs, there is nothing to overrule the instruction of the Lord. His word stands above reproach. It is above any other distinction. And Krishna is telling him to explain and guide him that your nature is of a Kshatriya. So in chapter 2, he will say, if you believe there's a soul, fine, still fight. If you believe there's no soul, still fight. Either way, there's no loss, Arjuna. Why are you giving up the battle? So he's trying to convince him in many, many ways. And along the Bhagavad Gita, you will notice Arjuna's questions start getting more and more introspective. They start to get more and more into details. He first starts by saying, I don't want to fight. And Krishna tries to convince him in 2-3 ways. And then in the process of Krishna convincing him, Arjuna gets more questions. He says, oh, so you want me to work? So you say, oh, I should do this work because I'm Kshatriya. So if that's the case, why can I not just be the devotee? Just be a Brahmana. I have that nature in me. I'm kind, I'm soft-hearted. Why can't I just be a Brahmana? He says, but that's not you. You are a devotee and you are a Kshatriya. These two things go together, Arjuna. And you are representing me. I am asking you to fight.
Isn't that contradicting a little bit in the sense that you just mentioned we don't identify with the body, no. But now Arjuna, he's a Kshatriya. He's a man. He's not a woman that's going into battle.
Well, Kshatriya women, some of them do battle in those days, but the concept is basically that you do your job.
In my feeling, it's not. I don't mean to offend or anything, but my feeling is, if the scripture is saying women should not blow the conch shell, then we should follow that, because this is Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is instruction from Lord Chaitanya directly.
So there is an explanation for that.
Huh?
There is an explanation for that. Sometimes we notice that the scriptures say something and then Prabhupada modifies it a little bit. If you notice, just Prabhupada's, his teacher, his instruction was 64 rounds. Prabhupada made it 16. Does it mean that we are no longer eligible because Prabhupada changed it? No. The Acharya has the right to modify instructions based on time, place, and circumstance. Whatever works best in that time, place, and circumstance, he will modify. That does not negate the instructions that came before, but that does not disqualify the alterations he's making now.
Correct.
You get what I'm trying to say? So by following Srila Prabhupada, we will not go wrong. But that does not make Hari Bhakti Vilas false. In that time, place, and circumstance, Hari Bhakti Vilas was the perfect way to do something. But because times are changing and we are now in a different yuga, we're in Kali Yuga, and the world around us is different now, Prabhupada gave us the easiest and most straightforward way to do the same thing in one life. That's all.
So you're saying Prabhupada instructed that women should blow the conch shell?
Prabhupada taught us Vaidhi, and he allowed us to do everything. There was nothing restricted to us. That there is no difference between a man doing the pujari service and a woman doing a pujari service. It's all the same. The question is only about cleanliness and your time. You know, if you have children, you have to focus on that. Prabhupada used to say, get your priorities right. That's all you stop. He would never talk about the service itself. And, you know, Prabhupada said, everybody should be guru. He said, everyone should preach. Everyone should go out there and preach. So, Prabhu, I would recommend that asking questions is the best way to learn something. So I'm really happy that you're coming out and asking these questions. There is no right question or wrong question. I have also asked many questions like this. When I started reading, it was very confusing. Sometimes I would read things that didn't gel well with me, but I was able to hold on because I really liked the people who taught me. The people who guided me have always been very kind and generous with their explanations. If they don't know, they'll say they don't know, and they'll try to find out for me. But ISKCON is such a practical way. It works very practically. It doesn't go into, you know, Prabhupada wanted everybody to have a chance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted everyone to have a chance. He broke open the storehouse and gave it to the most uneligible of people. He gave it to all of us. We are the most uneligible. We have no right. Our qualification is our disqualification. Literally, we are so fallen, we are qualified. That's how it goes. So,
Haribo.
yes, so that's how it goes. As long as you hold on to Srila Prabhupada.
You're so funny. You're funny.
Actually, Maharaj always reminds us that Krishna is very attached to his devotees, right? So we are reminded of the story of Narada Muni with the Yamalarjuna trees. Do you remember the
Yes.
one we sing? Yeah. So in that, it's Narada who says to the two sons of Kuvera, stay here as trees. You will stay here till you meet Krishna. One day you will meet Krishna, and that will be your deliverance. And in the explanation from the Acharyas, it says that once Narada said it, Krishna had to do it. Because such is his attraction to his devotee that Krishna may go back on his word. He will never go back on a word the devotee has made. He says this will happen, Krishna will make sure it will happen because that is his affection for his devotee. Krishna sells himself to his devotee, right? His pure devotee literally owns Krishna. That is why that pure bhakti is so difficult to get, because you literally own Krishna. Krishna loves you so much, he will do anything for you. So when the Acharya makes a modification, so the question is, so Hari Bhakti Vilas says this, but you're doing like this because your Acharya gave this. Will you be able to go back home, back to Godhead, or are you just going to collect aparads and go down to Narak, go down to hell? What's going to happen to you? My answer is, Krishna loves his devotees so much. And an Acharya says, do this, he accepts. Even though it may not be the marker that was set before, he accepts. And because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the most generous avatar ever. And he gave this holy name, which can literally take you back home, back to God. It is the fastest, it's our express road back home. He opened it to everybody. He didn't hold it back. In such a situation, when Krishna himself did that, I don't think the Acharya was wrong in giving everybody an opportunity, because he's following the footsteps of the Lord himself.
Yeah, the Hari Bhakti Vilas, the consequences for a woman blowing a conch shell is not that bad. It's just that Lakshmi runs away. So I guess the Goswamis were totally poor, renounced. So it's not such a bad thing.
It is a good thing for a devotee. It's a good thing for a devotee.
It's not really a bad thing, but then you have to remember one more thing. If Krishna is always in your mind, and Krishna is always in your heart, where can Lakshmi go?
Yes.
But if the woman does not have Krishna in her mind and heart, if her service is not for the Lord, if she does not live to please the Lord, then of course, Hari Bhakti Vilas applies. But for a woman who is in Krishna consciousness, she wakes up to shlokas on Krishna. She cooks for Krishna all day. She cleans the home that's named after the Lord. She takes care of the family full of Vaishnavas. She goes to bed planning to do the same the next day. Her whole life revolves around the Lord. Her money goes, if she's earning, the money goes towards the Lord. For a woman like that, in whose heart Krishna resides, where will Lakshmi run? She has nowhere to go. She always stays with Krishna.
Yes, good point.
So if we don't have money, we don't blame anybody. It's Krishna's desire that we have less. We accept. And if a lot of money comes, it must be because Krishna has told Lakshmi to give it. And she said.
It was funny because recently I saw a video in the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. They were inaugurating or pre-inauguration ceremony. And it's almost like they did it on purpose. They were at least 20 women with conch shells blowing. And I was like, oh no, it must be a special mercy.
No,
but this is how it goes. It is a problem for me sometimes because of reading Hari Bhakti Vilas. There's a lot of things that are.
No, but it's wonderful that you read Hari Bhakti Vilas. It is an authorized scripture.
Yeah, it is.
Important.
It is very valuable. But when my wife used to blow the conch shell when we called the cows, but I told her, no, please don't blow the conch shell anymore because we're gonna be poor. Better not to blow. Better blow the buffalo corn.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So,
actually, it's very
Mataji has a question, I think.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, a part of my question has been answered, and it surprisingly it was about corn shells. And just yesterday, I was looking at Amazon to buy one, and then I go, oh, what do I buy? Because I don't know anything which one to buy. So maybe And part of the reason when research, when I was reading, it did bring up the subject that women shouldn't blow the conch shells. So this is perfect for me. Usually I watch it on YouTube, and today I don't know why I came
Yeah.
here, and it's like, wow, yesterday. So I know I can blow conch shell. I'm very happy to hear that, but I don't know how to buy one. What do I look for in a conch shell when I want to
Yeah,
buy?
buying online is a bit tricky because we can't
Oh.
really see it, or I mean, buying it in a shop is much easier.
Mhm.
But you could buy it from one of the Krishna related stores, so that at least the person selling it to you is aware of your
Oh,
use for the
okay.
conch shell.
So
When
do
you-
they sell it at ISKCON in Mountain View? How do I find these stores?
I am not sure if we have stock. We used to, but
Okay.
you can call the temple and ask them, and
Okay.
they will check and get back to you if there's stock.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Because we just had Janmashtami, things have been moved around. You have to give us a little time
Right,
to figure it out.
Or,
But if we
or
have
come,
stock, we would sell it.
come on Sunday feast. Come to Sunday feast. There are a lot of devotees. You can ask them, get all these questions answered.
So, yeah. Please
Okay.
come.
Yeah, I'm not there. I hardly am there because I live in Merced.
Oh,
Oh,
Merced. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
But I've been there a few times, but unfortunately, I watched it on YouTube the whole day, Krishna Janmashtami. It was wonderful. Yeah.
This is the Wikipedia article. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
so Ulysses
look.
Prabhu is giving an article, Meera Mataji. So you can look.
Oh,
at
that is no. It's about the conch shell that goes
right other way.
this way and that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
clockwise and counterclockwise. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very happy you came, Meera Mataji. I'm happy I could help.
Thank you.
It's just I try my best, but you should
Oh,
come.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I
so
may not
much.
have the answers, but I think doing these lectures actually helps, because there's nothing like
Yeah.
you to learn the best you teach. When you teach, you can learn a lot. So it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
nice to share this
Yeah,
information.
and the chapter 1, when you explained it, it's like, oh wow, thank you. Because each time I hear, it's like it clarifies more, it brings more clarity. It's like
Repetition,
I didn't really know this. Yeah.
I think we're way over time. Sorry, Prabhu. Thank you so
Okay.
much for coming.
You're welcome.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। Thank you so much. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Hari
Hare
Bol.
Nilakanta Mataji ki jai.
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 Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna. Devotees ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai.